Bioengineering seminar. Today we have a former bioengineering student of ours who actually went to the dark side and translated herself. She's now a third-year resident now?
Or med student.
Third-year med student. And so especially this lecture is geared towards those of you that are interested in going to med school. She's going to give her presentation, and then there'll be ample time for you to ask questions. Also, if you notice, a lot of our courses right now are aligned with med school, and Dr. Roussel has actually put a table where basically there's a correlation between which courses you can put for which pre-med requirement, and there's that table that's available with Dr. Roussel. Okay? With that, thanks, Emily.
Okay. Does anyone actually want to go to med school or are interested? Okay, because like in my class, like half the people started out wanting to go to med school. Okay, so yeah, so kind of first things first, like do you want to go? And then you kind of need to figure out which schools you want to go to, because like Dr. Gugru was saying, a lot of them actually kind of have different requirements for prereqs, and then also a lot of them have like different letters of recommendation that you require. So kind of like first things first, if you're interested in a specific school, you kind of need to figure that out kind of early. And then also, like, what is their MCAT range? Are you hitting the range that they normally accept? That's pretty important. And that also goes along with, like, timing of when you take the MCAT and all of those things. And then also, what extra things do they like? Like, specifically, UofL-BE is really interested in rural medicine. So if you're kind of like, hey, I might want to do a rural medicine geared program, that also goes along with that. And then kind of a huge question, this was literally the first question I got asked on my interview at UofL was, do you know what you're getting yourself into? That's a pretty huge thing. Medicine is very idealized, and people are like, yes, I'm gonna have a bomb paycheck, this is gonna be great. But it's a lot of work, and there are a lot of hindrances to being a doctor. It does have like, oh yes, I feel elevated in society, but no, like you have to know what you're getting yourself into and have true reasons why you want to go into this profession. And so like I was saying, they differ for each college. UofL's med school website had all of very specific things that they wanted, and UK was pretty vague. But kind of one thing I would suggest, like when I was doing it, I was told I needed to take Organic 1 and Organic 2 with the labs, and that's what I needed to add on to my bioengineering curriculum. Now you can substitute Organic 2 lab with biochemistry, and if you can manage to fit that into your schedule, I would highly suggest doing that. Like my entire second semester of first year was straight up biochem. And then one of your huge board tests, one of the books you use to study for your step 1 exam, which is a big board test you take after your first 2 years of med school, 90 pages of that book was straight up biochemistry. So if you're able to take that, that would help you a ton. And then also obviously we cover all the math. And then the other thing with English, if you take the AP test, like I think I took AP and got a 3, so that made me have to take another English. Like it wouldn't substitute for my English credits. So that's another thing you kind of need to be aware of. But yeah, you can read this, and sometimes the AP credits don't substitute for that specific med school. For other med schools, they don't care, and it's fine. And then the MCAT. I'm sure if you're interested, you've heard of this very daunting test. It's about 7.5 hours long. It's really terrible. And so the first section is straight up chemistry and physics, and then the section 2 of it is literally like reading for the ACT. So that reading section, if you took the ACT, that's basically what it is. And then section 3 is a lot of biology and organic chemistry and biochemistry. So once again, like it would be a really good idea to take the biochemistry class if you can swing that. And then the section 4 is psychology and sociology, which I didn't have any. I think I took psychology as a gen ed, but it's actually pretty important. We learn some psychology terminology, and they also show up on some of your medical school boards tests. So that's another thing. And kind of going along with, or the MCAT, like if you haven't had the switch over, it's from a 472 to a 528. And then obviously you register for the AAMC website, and I would do it months in advance. When I took the MCAT, it had literally just switched to the new MCAT. So all of the people were rushing to take the old MCAT before it changed, and all the test days were filled up. So you guys probably won't have this problem since there's not a huge rush to switch to like take a test. But I didn't realize it would, like, all of the test dates would fill up that quickly. So it would be a good idea to take it months in advance. And then also, if you schedule it, it forces you to study for it. Like, that's kind of with anything. If you know you have a deadline, you can't procrastinate as terribly as you want to. And then for UofL School of Medicine, the average for the 2018 class was a 508. And then for UK 2017, it was a 510. Take that as you will. I think average is a 500, like, for the population. That's like why they switched to the new one. They were trying to like better stratify, I guess, the entering class, and they wanted 50% of people to get 500, and so obviously they're going to accept people who are above 50%. And also the MCAT's very important. You ideally want to take that the beginning of your junior year if you want to go to med school immediately after you graduate speed school without doing the master's. You ideally want to take that the fall of your junior year. That way if you do poorly on it, you can take it the spring of your junior year. And that kind of is very important for applications, because if you want to enter med school that following year, applications begin the summer before your senior year. That's when you want to start that application process, because going along, basically whenever that application opens, you want to submit. You want to have all of your things in at that time, because they admit based on a rolling basis. So even if you have amazing statistics and everything, if you don't start immediately when the application opens, they might not even get your application, you won't get an interview, and you won't get in. Okay. Yes, and I know it's a daunting test, it's 7.5 hours long, but I took 3 8-hour tests my second year, the first semester of your second year. And then one of your boards exams, all the boards exams you're going to take from here on out, they are long tests. They're 8 hours long. So if you're terrified of this test, like, you're just going to have more. It's going to be great. And yes, like I was saying, the application is a lot more complicated than you would think. There's like a primary application that you do through AMCAS, which is the AMC people that does the MCAT. So you basically have a primary application, and that you can start working on the application in May, and then you can submit it the earliest June 1st. And basically when June 1st rolls around, you want to click submit. And that way, when you're doing that application, you can choose which schools you want to send it out to, and then so those schools will get your primary application, and then the schools will send you a secondary application. And then once you get that secondary application, you want to complete that in about 2 weeks. Like, you want to finish that secondary application once again as quick as you can. And the secondary applications usually have a lot of fees attached to them. So if you take out loans, you are going to want to factor that in for your loans. And then, yes, for me, I was lacking in a lot of areas on my application, so I had to figure out how to best sell myself, because that's what you're doing. You're selling, like, this is why you need me. And so for bioengineering, you automatically already have a good selling point. I feel like with all of the engineering classes, they always talk about, like, if you have a medical device and you want to get it to market, you have to have your elevator pitch. You need to figure out what your own hook is going to be. So my hook was, I had done a lot of research, but I did hardly any shadowing and not really a lot of volunteer work. So my pitch was, hey, I want to be a physician, but I want to do medical device design, ideally. Like, I want to run clinical trials on new medical devices. I just want to be the doctor side of things, not the engineer side of things. And so that was my hook. And so basically, maybe you're super interested in affecting healthcare policy, and you've been in a lot of clubs that have done that. If that's your hook, stick with it. But ideally, before you go into the application, you want to figure out what your hook is so you can add things to the application that back that up. And so like on the thing, like what have you done to show this is what you want to do long term? And so there's a bunch of different sections. So the first 3 are just your background information. The section 4 is the coursework. You basically have to manually enter in all of that and what your grade is, and then you also have to send your transcript. That can sometimes take a little bit of time, so just make sure you do that early on, because like I said, you want to get all of your information in as quickly as possible to these schools. And so for U of L, the average GPA is 3.65, and then the average BC PM, that's like all the science courses that they require. That's a 3.55, and then those are UKs. And so section 5 is your work experiences. You can put in like 15 extracurricular things, and usually you can put a little blurb in there about what you did. And they do it, it appears chronologically, so they will look at all of it, but you're able to say like, hi, I really enjoyed these 3 experiences that I had, and they'll let you talk more about it. So for me, I worked with Dr. Magnuson for my co-ops. Those were very meaningful to me. That's basically through him is why I went into med school, even though he would be very mad about it because he's like, never go to med school. And then I talked a lot about working with Dr. Susie, and so those were very meaningful experiences for me. And so I asked my friend, if you're a med student and you have an opportunity to be on the admissions committee. I was not on the admissions committee, but my friend Sean was. And so I was like, which experiences do you think are good experiences to put? He said shadowing was very important because kind of like the big bolded question, do you know what you're getting yourself into? He literally told me that. Once again, like, they want to know you know that you know what you're getting yourself into. And so, like I was saying, people idealize it. They need to know that you know what's great about it, what's bad about it, all of that stuff. And then for me, they really loved that I did research and that I still wanted to do research. I think I had a friend, they like asked him, do you want to do research? Even though he'd done a ton, and he was like, no. And I was like, it's probably, even if you don't want to, it's probably not a good idea to say, no, I don't want to do it. And they do like publications. And publications become a really big thing if you then want to apply for residency. Like, a lot of residencies, on average, depending if you want to go into something super competitive, like they want you to have 5 publications. And so like starting getting publications early now is really, really great. Extracurriculars are important. It's more not necessarily like quantity of extracurriculars that they want. They want to see that you've started something and followed it through, and that you are really passionate about what you're doing. So it's better to like follow through and be involved in something and be able to talk about that stuff. And also, you don't want to put like a tiny extracurricular that you really didn't do anything with, because they will, in your interview, they might ask you like, hi, I see you were in SWE. What did you do with SWE? And I would have been like, I paid a fee and that was it. So like, they want to see that you are involved and are passionate about what you're doing. And then once again, like volunteering always looks good. It's this, you're entering a service industry. You want to show that, hey, I like people, I want to give back, that's why I'm doing this. And then if you're lacking, like I said, I wasn't lacking in a lot of these, but I still got in and here we are. Just kind of figure out what your strengths are and put that in your application. And so then there are the letters of evaluation. I didn't know U of L had a weird pre-medical committee that you could start in from a young, wee little freshman, and then they will write a letter for you. I didn't do any of that. I just was friends with some of my professors, and they wrote letters for me. And some, Dr. Susie, some schools want specific things. So like U of L, they want, I think, 2 science professors and then 1 non-science professor. Finding a non-science professor was super hard for me, because I was like, all of my professors are science professors, and non-science people, I don't speak to them. Sorry. I just didn't talk to those professors. I just didn't talk to them. So I think for my non-science professor, I put Dr. Kenton, because he taught me finance. And I was like, that's not exactly science, so this will count, it's fine. And so it was weird. Like, he's a science professor, but he didn't teach me science, so I was like, this is good, we're all good. Or he did the FDA class for me, so that's how I like went around that. they didn't question it, it's fine. But anyway, so it's always a good idea to talk to your professors and, you know, also if you ask them for a letter of recommendation, do it a month in advance because they're busy. They're doing all these crazy lab stuff. Also give them a resume with it because they want to talk about you, but if you only ever be like, hi, how's it going? They're not gonna know what to talk about, to brag about you on. So like give them your resume, make sure it's a nice resume, whatever, and then give them ample time to write the letter before you want it. And once again, like a lot of this stuff, like your transcripts and your letters of recommendation, you can submit your primary application before all that's in. It's just best to have all of that stuff in as soon as possible. So you can go ahead and get a secondary application and then you can get to your interviews. Okay, and so then there's your personal statement. Never, if anyone ever asks you like in interviews and personal statements, don't say you want to do this because you want to help people. That's obvious. Like, you need something, it's just obvious. So you need something like a real reason. Like I told the story of how I got here. I was working with Dr. Magnuson. Instead of building a weird continuous swimming pool, I liked that I was like helping, I did like little rat surgery. I dissected out a femoral artery, and to me that was way cooler than building this swimming pool. And so I like kind of went through all of this, like how I came here, and also that went into my like sales pitch. Like I came here, I've done this, and then this is why I want to do device design, clinical trials, whatever. So like just have your own story, try and catch people, but also it's not like, I don't know, at least for residency applications, what we're told, like your personal statement's not that huge. For med school, I think it is a little bit bigger because most people have really amazing GPAs. Most people have really good MCAT scores. What they don't have is you. And so you need to be like, this is me. This is why I'm the bomb, why you need to pick me. And then also like get non-science people opinion to read this. Like, I'm terrible at grammar. You hear me speaking. I don't sound eloquent. Like, you need non-science people to help you sound better than I normally do. That's what I needed. Anyway. Okay, so you hit submit for your primary application and you receive secondary applications. And those are usually more really annoying essay questions that you just wish they would go away. Because I hate writing, I still hate it, it's fine. But you do want to quickly turn around that secondary application. That's pretty important. And then like I was saying earlier, the secondary application usually requires a fee. So just pay attention to that. And then kind of like I was saying, usually the secondary application is like, why do you want to be with us? Like, you applied to us, you picked us specifically, like, we've seen you, we think you're kind of nifty, like, but why do you like us? And so you can kind of like research that institution a little bit and see why you like them. So like I was saying for UK, they're very rural. I'm from a rural place. I was like, I'm interested in your rural medicine program just because, you know, that's where I'm from and that's interesting to me. UofL, I know they like research and they like policy. The school is currently, something you could talk about if you apply to UofL, they're currently doing a lot of research on sex trafficking and being able to pick up sex trafficking patients. Like, you see a patient, you're talking to them, they want you to be able to pick up these warning signs. And if you're like, hey, I heard about that research, it was really cool, that's something I would be interested in, that's something you can talk about. Like, just kind of research that institution specifically and see what you like about it. And then the timeline for getting all of your applications in is it's probably the most important thing you can do. Like, when June 1st rolls around and you can submit your primary application, you need to be hitting submit. Like, I think I submitted mine, I was gone that summer, so I submitted mine kind of later, and it kind of messed me up down the road. Like, I submitted my primary application. I remember for UK, I got my secondary application kind of later. And then by the time they offered me an interview, it was still only September. But then when I tried to schedule my interview, I couldn't schedule an interview until February. And the week before I went on that interview, they were like, hey, we've actually already offered all of our positions. You can still come in, but the best we can give you is a wait list. So that was literally just like 2 months later. So, and that was the difference between getting waitlisted and not. So, Most of them start June 1st, and then this is for early decision. So like if you want to be considered early, you have to have the primary application in by August 1st, and then you can read this if you so choose. But like, if you look at their timelines and no one tells you, hey, this is very important, like the primary application for U of L is not till October 15th. But honestly, if you've submitted your primary application by October 15th, unless you have amazing, phenomenal MCAT scores, they're really not gonna probably give you that much time of day. Like, it's just very important. And I probably can't harp on that enough. And also, like, I want to say, I had a friend who would organize the interviews. And I think by December last year, U of L had already sent out, they still interview into like February and March, but they'd already sent out all of their spots by December. Like, so, once again, it's important. You can read this, but June 1st, have your primary application in. I cannot say that enough. And yes, like, it's a rolling basis. Get that in there. Okay, so say you have been accepted for an interview. Once you get that email, like, don't sit and wait and like, oh, I can respond and schedule my interview later. Everybody else also just got that email. Get on your phone, schedule the appointment as quickly as you can. Like, don't look at the days. Well, you probably should, but hopefully your professors would be lenient and be like, oh, hey, you have a med school interview, go forth, do your thing. But yes, immediately schedule it. And then we're at an advantage because we have to do co-ops. So we already have to interview. So that's pretty nice. But once again, they might ask you some random questions. I've had people who would tell me their interviews and they got asked super weird questions. So it's not a bad idea to look at a bunch of lists of practice questions that you see. So like, I remember for co-op interviews, I would get like the weird like, how do you deal with conflict with your coworkers? That type of thing. They might ask you how you deal with conflict with people, but for the most part, they kind of, once again, they want to know what you're getting yourself into. They want to know that you're involved and you're truly passionate about doing this. They also want to know that you are interested in healthcare. So they might ask you random healthcare policy questions. I got a pretty controversial question. Somebody asked me if I had a patient who was like had pancreatic cancer and were gonna die, like, would you do like euthanasia? Like, I got asked about that. And it's not, you can have a stance on controversial questions. Like, that's perfectly fine. You just need to be able to explain yourself and like why you feel that way. And you also need to be able to have a conversation with somebody about it and not be closed-minded. Don't be like, hi, I am pro-life for these religious reasons. You need to be able to be like, I'm pro-life because I think this, but I'm perfectly okay with pro-choice people, or whatever. And on the other side, like, I am pro-choice for these reasons. One thing I would say, I kind of mentioned that issue specifically because even if you are, say, pro-life, a lot of people, some people who are pro-life will say, I will not even refer someone to like an abortion provider. That's kind of a wrong answer. Right there, that would be a wrong answer. You want to, this is a bad topic to talk about. But if like someone asks you like, would you refer this patient? You should say you would refer them. Like, I'm not specifically going to do it, but I am perfectly okay referring them to someone else. Like, most people you're in healthcare, so we generally want like inclusive people and you want to provide the care that you can. And so that would be the only like controversial stance where you need to bend, even if you personally wouldn't bend. I don't know if that's a weird thing to talk about, but whatever. Okay. And kind of like if you have something on your application, it's very fair game. You might get questions on it. And also don't overly rehearse your answers. Like, they're gonna ask you like, tell me about yourself, and you might have a speech in your head where you say all of these things, but just don't rehearse it. Just be fluid and let the conversation come naturally and all of these things. And also like, make sure they're gonna ask like, what do you do as a hobby that you wouldn't necessarily like put in your application? And so like, I literally talked about like, I play on a kickball team and that's what I do for fun. And then also I was like, I like to build things with my dad and we built this really cool bookshelf and that's, yes, we built it. I just wanted to put that in there. There's my cat. Anyway, so there's like, just have fun hobbies and fun things you can talk about and, you know, be a person. They want people, they don't want a robot. So, okay. And then the day of the interview, like, you're gonna be with a lot of really type A people, and some people will be bragging on themselves and saying all this stuff, and it might get intimidating, but you have awesome qualities too, so don't be intimidated. And then just be nice. Just be nice to everyone. Like, the admissions people, they all talk about you. Like, don't think like, oh, this is the secretary, I don't need to be nice to this person. No, they will talk about you. Be nice to the secretary, be nice to everyone. Once again, you're in a service industry. You're going to encounter all kinds of people, and you have to be nice to them. And yes, like, don't let other talk psych you out. Like, some people are like, yes, I have 5 million publications, and I'm this awesome. And you're like, oh gosh, okay, that's cool. I have a cat. Woo. And then also, usually you're doing like walking tours and stuff like that. So just make sure you're comfortable in your outfit. Like, you can wear heels, I wear heels, but I wore like very low heels that I could, you know, wander campuses in. So that's, you know, just make sure you like feel confident in your outfit and definitely look professional. A lot of people wear the standard like black suit. You can vary from that by all means. Just make sure it's still professional. Like, some people, I've seen like some girls were wearing like a super bold printed dress that was on the shorter side. Like, don't wear a really short dress and or skirt. That's just not a great idea. And then with pencil skirts, like, I love pencil skirts, but sometimes they ride up. And just, you know, you don't want to constantly be like pulling your skirt down. Just make sure you're comfortable in your outfit and you can like wander around and do what you want to do. And so like, the people who are actually interviewing you, you will get some professors. You might have some students. Sometimes you'll have basic scientists who will ask you really absurd questions. And then sometimes you'll get random clinicians from the community that just volunteer their time. Everybody has a word in your interview. Some people talked about like, oh, I had a student, like they don't matter. No, everyone who interviews you, everyone you talk to that day, like they all matter. And so just make sure you're super nice and friendly to all. And then after the interview, you have to write a thank you note. Like, whoever interviews you, you send them a thank you note and or email, like however you're able. You have to send a thank you note. That's like a big, weirdly big thing. And yes, make your Southern mother proud. Like, my mom was like, oh my gosh, she sent a thank you note. I'm so happy. And then usually they do have a quick turnaround for when they respond to you. I heard back a week later from UofL because the admissions committee, they meet like every 2 weeks, I think. So usually you'll hear a quick turnaround. Just once again, like depending on the time of year, they might not have any more spots to give. So apply quickly. And so, yeah, so you might hear you get in, you might hear you get waitlisted. Even if you get on the wait list, like a girl in my class, she was living in California the week before school started. She got off the wait list, and so she like dropped her life in California and moved back in like 2 days right before school started. So like, even if you're waitlisted, there's still a very high chance you'll get in. Or at least you were telling me, I think it's like usually the top percentage in their wait list get in.
I want to say, I remember it was top third.
Yeah, like top third. Because like, some people will hold on to their acceptance spot for a very long time. And so it just kind of depends on if that person goes somewhere else where they want to go. And so basically, like, kind of the highlights of my advice is like, make sure you take biochemistry if you can. If you can't swing it, it's obviously not a huge deal. I'm fine. But it would have been helpful to know all those crazy cellular metabolism pathways. And And then shadow people, I've definitely shadowed people, and they can also, like, if you shadow somebody and become pretty close with that doctor, they can also write you a letter of recommendation, and that looks nice as well. And then, like I was saying, make friends with your professors. You will see them still from time to time. I ran into Dr. Kent the other day. I ran into Dr. Guru in the airport, like, hi, that's why I'm here. We saw each other in the airport. And then submit your application as soon as you can. Like, that's probably the number one thing, is get your application in as quickly as possible. And then just be nice to people, be very interested in what anyone is saying, and then just make sure you ask questions. Like, even if before you go in for an interview and you see something cool on the website, like, ask questions. It's sometimes hard because they do a really good job of explaining everything about their med school during the interview process. So, like, kind of finding how to ask questions can be hard. But, like, say if you have a clinician and they're in pediatrics, not a bad question would be like, hi, you're in pediatrics, why did you choose pediatrics? Like, how did you get through here? Like, what made you want to do pediatrics? And then, like, for a basic scientist, if you get one of them, one question would be like, so how are you affiliated with the school? Like, what do you teach? What's going on? It's never a bad idea to ask more questions about the interviewer, because that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. You're going to be asking people questions. You want to know about their lives and them as people. And so people usually take kindly to people who are interested in them. Like, that's just kind of a, life tip, I guess. And also, like, they might ask you, like, why do you want to do this? And you need to have a good answer. You need to have your elevator pitch, your sales pitch, like, how's it going, like, what you want. And also, like, weird random questions that I got were like, how do you stay well? Like, you are super stressed out, med school is very stressful, what do you do as a person that makes you, like, how do you de-stress yourself? How do you stay mentally okay? That could be like going out with your friends, that could be doing yoga, that could be running. Like, a big important thing, especially now in medical school, is like wellness. We have a wellness week. Burnout is very real. Like, you need to be able to bring yourself back up. And, like, I don't know, I'll go through that in a second. So, you have been accepted, and once again, do you know what you're getting yourself into? So the first year, at least at UofL, this is UofL stuff, UK is different, and this is what I went through. The curriculum is ever-changing, evolving creature, whatever. But UofL still does gross anatomy dissections. UK does not. They do pro sections. They do have gross anatomy labs, but you don't physically dissect it yourself. They, like, lost a body or something weird like that. And so they got their, like, dissection, like, taken back from them. But also schools are, like, moving away from that as well. Just because, like, for boards, anatomy is great, and I love dissecting. It was one of the best experiences of my life. But also, it's a little low yield for your step 1 exam. So, like, they're understanding, like, schools are somewhat moving to pro sections. But anyway, so we did pro sections and we did neuro, and then in the spring we did a lot of biochemistry, a lot of cell biology, blood disorders, immunology, all of that type of stuff. And then into the second year is when we got, like, really heavy into physiology and physiology, pathology, all of that good stuff for specific systems. Most schools are moving to a systems-based approach. You won't have a straight-up immuno class. You won't have a straight-up physiology class, though Dr. Schussi's physiology class for master's was amazing. It helped me out a ton. But it's all, like, specific, like, endocrine. These are the pathologies with the endocrine system. This is how the endocrine system works. This is the histology of the endocrine system. Like, they do that in systems. And so M2 was basically all of the systems through all that. And then so after the first 2 years, you are literally doing a ton of core study. Like, you are just studying. That is your life. You take what's called the step 1 exam. The step 1 exam is a terrible, terrible board test that you're in your residency. A lot of things are very important on this one stupid test that lasts like 8 hours long. They give you 6 weeks off to study just for this test. It's a national exam. And so literally, like, I just took step 1 because I'm a third year. And so, like, I studied 12 to 14 hours a day for 6 weeks straight. So wellness is very important. You need to be able to stay well. And then after you take your step 1 exam, after all these 4 classes, and hopefully you find out you did well, which is great, then you start your actual clerkships. You actually start going in and talking to people, and you rotate through a bunch of different specialties. So for your 3rd year, you hit all of the big ones. So like I did a pediatrics rotation, I've done my psych rotation, I'm about to start my family medicine rotation, and then you also do OB, internal, surgery, neurology, and then electives. And so ideally through your 3rd year of medical school, you're hitting all of the core clerkships, you kind of figure out what you want to do, and then you start your 4th year, and that year is more tuned to what you want to do. And then after that, you start residency. So like, once again, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Like, 2 years of straight up classes where you rarely see people, then you see people and it's great, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but then you have 3+ years. So like peds residency is only 3 years, but if you wanted to do general surgery, that residency is 5 years. Say you wanted to do neurosurgery, that residency is 7 years. So a big thing for med school is you kind of postpone your life a bit. At least I have. Some people are like getting married, having babies all through this. Good job, like that's cool. But you kind of postpone your life for a time period. And also you're in debt for a long time. Like you make money in residency, but not that much money. Like you don't hit 6 figures till after that. So you're gonna be in debt for a long time. A semester of med school, at least at UofL, is like $38,000. Like you're in debt for a long time. And also like some people are like, oh, I studied 2 years, I'm out of this. Now I'm in 3rd year and I'm seeing people. No, I take a test at the end of each shelf. Like this isn't you study now and you're not done studying. You are studying for the rest of your life. Medicine is ever evolving, ever changing. Like you have to really enjoy learning and all this stuff. You also don't have a lot of free time. I think I had in my blurb, I hanging out with my cat and that's about it. And Nick, that's about it. And also like, if you're an idealist and you like yes, I want to do this because I want to interact with people and meet all walks of life, you do get to interact with a lot of people, but like the medicine is changing. They want you to hit as many patients as you can. So you might only see a patient for like 15 minutes and then move on. Like you gotta be really quick. And that's kind of sad, like, because there is an art to medicine and all that, but if you're more interested in caring for the person and less, if that's all you want, then you should be a nurse, because they're the people who actually like take care of the person. As a doctor, you kind of want to be, I don't know, for me, I want to take care of the person, but I really like the science behind everything. That's what I wanted. Like, I'm huge into science, so there has to be more that you need than seeing the person and all that. There's a lot that you need for this profession. And yes, healthcare is obviously kind of a huge mess right now. Like, we went from universal healthcare to not universal healthcare. Who knows where the pendulum is going to swing? Like, who knows? And then yes, you are putting in a lot of hours. Like, they're trying to change things to where, I think like general surgery, they're trying to change it to where you don't work more than like, I don't know the actual hours, but like, they're trying to have where you don't work more than like 80 hours a week or something, which is not true. Like, you work a ton of hours, especially in residency, and you're not getting paid that much. And if you like did the grand scheme of all of that and did all the math, you're making money, you're doing pretty well for yourself, but you still might not be getting compensated all that well, comparatively to like all the life sacrifices you are making. So you definitely, if this is something you're interested in, you have to be willing to sacrifice other aspects of your life, if that makes sense. But there is there are a lot of great things in medicine, and I'm still optimistic. A lot of people get very cynical, and if you talk to a lot of doctors, they're very burnt out, but I'm still excited. Personally, like, I love people, I love the science, I love always learning, and if that floats your boat, then by all means, come join the dark side. But you do have to have something that drives you at the end of the day, because like, it can't be the money, it can't be prestige, it can't be like constantly like meeting all the new people. It has to be very multifaceted for why you want to go into this. And then, yeah, I've made a ton of great friendships. It's really great being with a lot of like-minded people, people who are passionate about the same things. And so that's really great. And so difficulties I faced, it's definitely different style of learning. Like, I could somewhat, like, if I was taking a test, usually there's a problem. You can figure out that problem. No business, like, but if I didn't straight up remember, like, this stupid receptor caused this downflow chain of events, like, if I didn't straight up brute memorize that, then I wouldn't know it. But in engineering, you can always kind of, like, figure out the problem in front of you, at least for tests anyway. A lot of medicine is brute memorization, and thankfully, I learned I'm okay at that, and so things went fine. It also is a huge volume of material. It's a very accelerated pace. You gotta put in a ton of information into your head, and there's not a lot of time to do it. So you gotta be able to do that. And then sometimes talking to people is hard. Like, there are a lot of difficult questions you have to ask, and I was just on my psych rotation, so I had to become very comfortable asking, like, do you harm yourself? Like, do you wanna, have you ever thought about committing suicide? Like, has anyone raped you? Like, you have to be comfortable asking people those questions. And then also, it's a huge balance, like being able to balance all of these things, school and life and people and friendships, like that's pretty hard. And then yes, making time for yourself and other people is hard. Also difficulties, I got a cat and she's crazy, it's fine. And then also Nick has more of a social life than me, and that's really depressing because I'm so much more extroverted than he is. But anyway, and also I obviously struggle with being a professional, as you have read my flyer, and as I've sat here, I'm weird, and it's fine. And then one thing in medicine, you don't ask, do you have questions? You ask, what questions do you have? So, what questions do you have? This is my cat, that's Bella, that's Nick's dog. We're best friends, she loves me more, it's fine. Questions? Yes?
I guess I hear over and over like shadowing and how big that is, but nobody ever really quantifies it. So can you like quantify how much shadowing is important for your applications?
You can't. Usually in the application they ask how much how many hours did you devote to this. So like if you shadowed somebody for like 10 hours a week, that's usually a section in that experience. And so you are able to quantify that. And then also, ideally you build a great relationship with that person, and then they can write a letter of recommendation for you. Anything else?